Welcome to the Focal Insights Podcast Founder Hour edition, hosted by co-founder Joe Pawlak. Joe has been in the e-commerce industry for over 25 years. He grew and bootstrapped his own startup to a successful exit. Founder Hour episodes go behind the scenes to learn how some of the best e-commerce brands were founded, grown, and operated straight from the founders themselves. Founder Hour is brought to you by Focal Software, a new generation ERP and operation suite for e-commerce brands and third-party marketplace sellers. Focal was built with SMB brands and marketplace sellers in mind to help them grow profitably. Now let's welcome our host, Joe Pawlak.
Hello and welcome to the Focal E-commerce Insights Podcast, where we chat with e-commerce entrepreneurs about business, selling online, and how to overcome challenges for success. Today we have a very exciting guest, but before we get started, for our listeners not familiar with our company or the podcast, Focal Software is an e-commerce operations software and marketplace account management company. So if you need help growing your business profitably, be sure to stay tuned to future podcasts or feel free to reach out. Joining us today is Rick Hopper. Rick is the founder of ReadeREST. Rick has built and sold two companies, TrimQuick and ReadeREST, and just bought one of them back. He was able to grow his first business from zero revenue to $5 million in revenue in just 3 years. He founded TrimQuick in 2001 and ReadeREST in 2011. He was a participant on the TV show Shark Tank. And Rick believes that the path to success is by solving problems for yourself and then finding a way to deliver those solutions to the masses. And he currently lives and works in Bartonville, Texas. Rick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here, man.
All right. Well, we always start off this podcast. We always start off the podcast talking about how people got into business or what was the motivation. There's usually something people either knew they were going to do it their whole life and somehow found a way to get into it, or maybe a hobby that turned into a business. Why don't you tell us a little bit about either or both of your companies and what was the motivation to get going into owning your own business?
Well, man, my whole life I was always the magnet for creative ideas. I don't believe I actually come up with ideas. I think the ideas come to me from the ether or from the creator. So I've always been in the middle of I've always had the nature to identify a problem and the solution a lot of times before anybody even sees the problem. So when I started my first company, I'll run you through a little history because it's kind of the way my mind developed as a kid and beyond. I was not great at school. I got A's and B's in the subjects I liked, and C's and D's in the subjects I don't, probably just like you and all your friends. I was not an overachiever in school. As a matter of fact, I went to college twice. I made it halfway through a semester both times. I'm not slow. School is slow, and I had to go make money because I was starving. So I will just real quick touch on, I went through a season. My wife kicked me out because I got strung out smoking meth for 2.5 years. And I spent some time in jail, spent some time on the street. And I do not recommend that as part of anybody's recipe because I'm lucky to be alive. But when I got clean, I was super committed to making life happen because I knew I was lucky to be alive. Very few of us make it out of that disaster. And so I needed a regimen. I went to work at Home Depot for 6 years. Even though I was a master carpenter, and I had the ability to make money installing doors and windows and doing kitchens and closet organizers and all. But I went to work at Home Depot to get a base. And then on the weekends and evenings, I did a lot of side jobs. Now, I'm going to get to the part where I started my first successful company because in 2001, I was still working at Home Depot. And I had bought my very first house. It was a little condo, and of course, the first thing I do as a window and door installer, I put new doors in, I install new windows. And it hit me, the window industry wouldn't deliver a product that I needed as a window installer. And I don't know why they didn't do it, but they just wouldn't do it. So I created a peel and stick window trim option, which is on the interior. You place a new window into an old frame, you wind up with a gap around the inside. So I literally fill the gap with peel and stick strips of plastic. Seems simple and pretty obvious, but it wasn't being done. And so when I went around to a window installers and said, hey, I got this new product, it went nuts fast because it was cheaper, better looking, and quicker. So everybody bought it. I mean, it was such a no-brainer. It was so easy to sell that stuff. So Trim Quick grew really quick. I was careful. I was really careful. And I will caution anybody that's watching this show that wants to grow really fast, be careful because I'm sure you've had some people on your show that have talked about this. But if you outsell your ability to produce and deliver and treat customers like the gold that they are, you're gonna injure yourself, and you only get one chance to set a great example to customers. So I'm just gonna share the love. I do have a lot of experience, a lot of painful experiences. I've made a lot of mistakes. So, we're talking about 25 years of starting a few companies, two of which I was able to grow and sell. And I just recently bought this one back. So,
well, let's talk about that a little bit, overcoming challenges. So you brought up a good one in your personal life that you overcame. So that teaches some perseverance in your life. And then in business, you mentioned growing too quickly, which can create, it's like be careful what you wish for, right? Because then you've got too much work that you can handle. You weren't ready to scale, and you can damage your brand and your reputation. And that often takes longer to restore than starting from scratch in the first place. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't know what it was that what got into my head that gave me the natural ability to identify customers as really valuable. But because maybe it's just my experience. I've seen people treat me like a number and just one of millions of people that they can get money from. And I want every deal that I do, every relationship that I build, every deal I make, I want to be a mutually beneficial relationship. If everybody's not winning, then it's just no fun. So if I would have gone after all of the available customers that I could find all at once, I wouldn't have been able to deliver on time, excellent product, and they would have been mad because the product was either late or the substandard quality. So there's a lot of things that will happen if you grow too fast, and you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you also touched on something that's very interesting. You said that you identify, I forgot exactly how you phrased it, but you identify a problem before people see the problem. And those type of businesses are often what people refer to as disruptors. In other words, like Uber replacing taxis. Nobody even knew what Uber was. So that's a challenge too. So you create something that doesn't exist. There's a problem there, but they don't know it. So how did you overcome that? Or was it just immediately apparent to people that you showed it to?
Well, there's two schools of thought. Is if you're bringing something to the market that people are not familiar with, they walk up to your trade show booth and look at your product and they're like, what is that? Because there's nothing to associate in their mind. Oh, it's one of those. It's just better. If it's completely new, well, it took me 10 years with ReadeREST for people to go, oh, I know what that is. We saw that on Shark Tank. That's that. Oh, we love. Oh, I got my dad one of those for his birthday or whatever. And it's so it's really difficult to push a rock up a hill and explain to the world what your solution is. But if you take a situation like, for example, my window trim product, Trim Quick, we already used a product to fill the gap. It was called wood. You cut the wood, you nail it on, and you caulk in the edges, and then you paint it to match the window frame. And that was a big, long, drawn-out process. So it was window trim. So when I brought a peel and stick window trim that doesn't need nails, it doesn't need nail filler, it doesn't need paint, all you do is you peel it, you stick it, you cock it in, and you walk away from the window's done. That is a really easy story to tell the customer that identifies with window trim. So that was really easy to sell, and I didn't have to train people as to what we were doing. So so when you ask the question, as far as identifying solutions to problems, sometimes actually some people are unaware that something is complicated because it's just how we do it. I am very unsettled with complications. I'm very lazy. I'm very I don't like doing hard stuff. So I naturally find, they say necessity is the mother of all inventions. I think laziness is the mother of all inventions as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because I want to find an easier way. Every situation I walk up to, every room I walk into, I don't care if it's a restaurant and there's a process or there's a way the seating is done. I mean, I've been known to go into people's houses and rearrange their furniture because it's just not right. And they usually like it and they leave it. But my wife doesn't like that when I do that. Anyway, so when you identify a problem, the first thing that comes to my mind is there's got to be a better way. And there usually is. So I met a guy dropped off a pallet of product this morning to me, and the truck driver, he looks around what we're doing. He's like, "What do you do?" And I explained it to him, and you could tell this kid wants to do more with his life. He's 28 years old, and he just wants to do bigger, better things than just driving a truck. And I meet people all the time. And I literally, since I was on Shark Tank, I've had hundreds of phone calls of people asking me questions like, "Hey, I got this idea. I just don't know what to do next." And I walk people through the process all the time for free because there really wasn't anybody there for me to go to. So I try to be that person that answers those questions for anybody I can.
Yeah. And you mentioned Shark Tank. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Shark Tank that's listening. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience? And I'm curious too, how is it something you apply for? I haven't been on Shark Tank, so I don't know exactly how that whole thing works.
Well, I would imagine there's a lot of people that watch your podcast that have been through the process or attempted to get on Shark Tank. And there's several different ways to get on the show. So the first couple of years, I don't watch a lot of TV, so I never heard of Shark Tank. The third season was about to start taping when I launched this product here, the ReadeREST magnetic eyeglass holders. Oh, by the way, a little plug: we got great reading glasses also. So when I decided to figure out who my customers are and what my price points should be, I started doing trade shows, street fairs, farmers markets, gun show, golf show, quilt show, you name it. Wherever there was 1,000 people walking down the street, I put my booth in front of them, and they'd come walking down the street, and they'd look at my product, and they were throwing cash at me like crazy. But the one thing I heard more than anything was, "Dude, you got to get on Shark Tank." And I'm like, "I've never heard of the Shark Tank. What is that?" And they're like, "Well, it's a game show. It's this contest. You could win a prize." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not going. I'm starting a business." I had just recently sold a business. I wasn't rolling in dough, but I had enough money to go do something else, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So I finally looked up Shark Tank, and I found a process. Now, to answer your question, there's different ways to get on the show. They do casting calls in different parts of the country where they promote it, and people come by the thousands, and they line up down the street and around the block, and they want to get their 2-minute pitch into a junior producer or a casting crew or something. Well, I didn't know about any of that back then, and it was 2 years of Shark Tank had already happened, and I wound up going on their website. I broke the rules. I lied and cheated to get on the show. And I recommend everybody does that. They're not going to appreciate that. Sorry, Shark Tank. But
you told them what they wanted to hear.
Well, it's funny. When I went to the email or the internet, their website that had the product submission process, They wanted your domain name, your brief description, your and then it says, do not send videos, do not send samples, but attach a picture of yourself. So in my response, I gave them everything they wanted, but I said, if you want to see a picture of me, click on this link. It was a moving picture, which if you're over 40 years old, you'll know that that's a video, a moving picture. Right. And so a week later, the producer of Shark Tank calls and says, hey, this is so-and-so from Shark Tank, nice video. And because I broke the rules, I just, what do I have to lose? I'm already not on the show. They get 40,000 applicants. Back then, they were getting 40,000 applicants. And I think they were picking 90 participants. Wow. So that's how I got on the show. I really don't know. I think they even sometimes reach out to companies that they identify as, hey, this might be a good, company, product to have on our show. So,
yeah. Okay. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about e-commerce. So, I know that you sell online for ReadeREST. Were you always an online seller, or were you with the previous company, or did you start out? It sounds like mostly trade shows and things like that. But talk about how you got into selling online and how that's going for you.
Yeah, we didn't do. I mean, the only thing we had online for TrimQuick was the website. You could actually go to our website and. Usually people just called us on the phone and says, hey, I own a window company. I'd like to buy your product or whatever. Or I literally went door to door all over the place and I'd custom make a flyer and drop it off, knock on the door. I'd go into their place of business and hand them a flyer with their name on it, give them a little personality to the product. Mm-hmm. But with ReadeREST, this was, I got a website right away, but back in 2011, Amazon really wasn't what it is today. I mean, in the last 14 years, it's come a long ways. And so, for example, I would say I had, after Shark Tank, we got on QVC and they were, like 27, QVC was like 24 to 27% of my revenue. Walmart, I got $1 million purchase order from Walmart. I was doing business with Bed Bath & Beyond, Hobby Lobby, Container Store. I mean, lots of stores, Ace Hardware, True Value. We were trying to get into all the stores we could to be in front of customers. Well, I didn't like the way an exchange went on one time with my buyer at Walmart. That made me feel really uncomfortable. I decided to really expand the company so that if I had to say no to Walmart for the next required price reduction, I could leave Walmart and it wouldn't injure my company. So, and it just so happened that Amazon was really starting to take off. So we went from, 90% retail down to 10% retail and 90% Amazon over the next few years. So e-com, Amazon makes it so easy to take payments and so fast to get shipments that they have conditioned us to go straight to Amazon and buy stuff. We get it. We get the best prices. There's lots of pricing options available. And then you've got my website. Now, we don't even have a website right now because, and this is insane, I sold this company 3.5 years ago to an aggregator that was buying up lots of companies at the time. And they shut up.
Yeah, let me stop you there real quick. That was the next topic I wanted to talk about. So, if for anyone listening that doesn't know what that means, so I think around COVID time when e-commerce really blew up, we saw this proliferation of what's known as an aggregator, which just rolls up and buys up a bunch of Amazon stores. And so that was a big topic. They got tons and tons of money. They're buying up everything. And then it kind of slowed down, let's put it that way. And they ran into some difficulties. So you did sell, so you sold to an aggregator, and then you could tell the story, but then for whatever reason, ultimately you ended up buying the company back fairly recently. But talk about that process too, because aggregators are something a lot of people may have heard about, but don't know much about.
Yeah, my company was not even for sale at the time. I wanted to go bigger, but it seemed like the world was ending because everybody went nuts during COVID and started masking up and running away from each other like we're all sick. And it was, I don't even want to get into that,
Yeah.
but it was so crazy. And then all of a sudden, I got 3 or 4 letters of intent from different companies that had basically rounded up a bunch of capital from where the big capital is. And these guys were putting teams together and putting a name on themselves and buying up companies. And they all said the same thing. Oh, well, our team is built of ex Amazon people and web developers. And you think you're good at this. We're going to do way better than you. We're going to run your company better than you ever could imagine. Well, they all believed it, but I don't think any of them, I don't know for sure. I'm only aware of what I'm aware of, but they didn't run their companies as well as they raised their money, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of them aggregators literally went bye-bye. I know the guys that bought me wound up buying another aggregator with a bunch of companies inside of there also. And so they pulled up even more companies. And if anybody doesn't really understand the concept is, I mean, I'm a director of a nonprofit in Dallas called Biz Owners Ed. If anybody's listening to this podcast from the Dallas area, please, it's free. We help entrepreneurs do better in their lives. We have a class once a year for 10 weeks. Biz Owners Ed, that's BIZ, bizownersed.org. Come check out our 10-week program. It's free and it is incredible, the mentorship and the experience. Well, my point with that is one thing I've learned in the process is you've got a company this big, and let's say you have $500,000 in EBITDA earnings. Your company is probably worth, I don't know, a couple $1 million, a 4 times multiple or a 3. So historically, there is this graduating effect of more millions on the bottom line, the greater the multiple. So if you got, $1 million EBITDA and you're worth $3 million, well, if you have a $4 million EBITDA, you might be an 8 times multiple. So you went from 1 million to 4 million. And so your company went from a value of 3 million to $32 million. So that's what these aggregators were doing. They were creating profits. They were stacking profits on top of profits to create these monster companies that were super valuable that would get eventually gobbled up by. So I think that is the play for aggregators. And I think that's what the whole concept was. But you have to keep the companies healthy. I mean, you have to keep them strong and healthy. And it's when you have a whole bunch of companies, you got a whole bunch of chaos. And a lot of times you got to hire a bunch of people that may or may not be as competent as they said they were when you were hiring them.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned too, they have to keep the company healthy, and one of the things that they did with your company is they shut down the website. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a Shopify website that was a revenue stream. It was generating business and sales, and that's always where your highest margins are on your own storefront, your own business. But it sounds like they were just going to go 100% Amazon. Was that their plan?
That's what their whole focus was. So not only did they shut off my Amazon, or I'm sorry, shut off my website with my Shopify, they shut off my phone number. They shut off any access to customers to call and complain. And they didn't serve the customer the way I always had. They shut off all the relationships with all the retail stores. So therefore, you have that natural recurring effect of, especially when you got a product like this where you're wearing the product on the front of your body, you want everybody you can, even if they go buy it at Walgreens or Walmart or the hardware store, the more people that are wearing these things, the better. Even if it's a lower margin relationship, you want to be seen publicly in those locations. Well, they were just focused on Amazon. They did it. They did their thing, and I'm sure they have quite a few the folks that had purchased ReadeREST. I'm sure they've got some winners because they're still around. They've actually acquired other aggregators, and they're doing pretty good as far as I know. But ReadeREST was a very complicated business for them because we have hundreds of SKUs. So think about, we have 5 frame styles, 8 to 10 colors of each frame style, and up to 16 diopters. Do the math. 5 times 8, 40 times 16. So what is that? 32, 640 SKUs. And your sales velocity changes here and there based on who's shopping. I will say this. I want to throw everybody a stat. And I think everybody from every industry should think like this. Find out what your matrix is for your product, who your demographic, who are you selling the product to? I found out recently that 10,000 people in the United States turn 50 every day. I also learned that 75% of all humans lose control of that nerve that adjusts your eyes to the fine print. So when you see people putting their hand further away from their face, it's because that nerve that adjusts your eye to see the fine print up close starts to go bad in your 40s or 50s. So here's how the numbers work. 10,000, that's 30,000, 300,000 people a month turn 50. I just use that number because around 40 to 50 is typically when my customer who needs to wear reading glasses, who will benefit from a place to keep it safely on their shirt. How many customers do I have showing up every year? About 2.5 million brand new customers become available to me every year. So those are the type of matrix I recommend folks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I totally got off track.
That's all right. That's a good demographic example, and your market cap then increases every hour. Essentially, you've got more customers, potential customers.
Yeah, absolutely. The customers just keep coming.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's since we're on e-commerce and we talked about your website, that's a great example of an e-commerce tool, a Shopify website. What other tools have you found that are helpful to run the e-commerce side of the business, and what successes have you had there? And then the second part of that would be, what do you see coming in the future?
Well, okay, so depending on the type of company, there's so many different types of companies. I just happen to be product-based companies for the most part. I mean, I have another company we haven't even talked about called Wicked Hard Goods. I have another store on Amazon. I got the trademark Wicked Good, and it stemmed off. And this is a little nugget for your listeners. When I sold my interest in Trim Quick, I had a bunch of leftover rolls of this industrial grade double-sided adhesive that I used for projects for years, for all kinds of projects. I loved it. And then a couple of years ago, I ran out. And I kind of freaked out. So I thought, wow, if I could make this stuff available to the general public in smaller quantities, household quantities, but industrial grade quality, I can deliver it to people on Amazon. So it's a product I loved. So I did. I created a brand called Wicked Good, and we sell double-sided tape, carpet tape, gaffer's tape, which I renamed Dutch tape because it does everything that duct tape does. So if you go to Amazon and check out Wicked Good adhesives, double-sided tape, or carpet tape, you'll find us. That company is just a little fledgling where it's growing, and we're going to have now to answer your question about the tools of trade. So being a product-based business, inventory management is a very important component. Measuring sales velocity and making sure you're measuring up your sales velocity to when am I going to run out of stock, and the lead times to get the products, if that's 3 months to get it, or if it's 2 months to make it, manufacture it. And so always negotiating in your spreadsheets, how long is it going to take me to get a replenishment order? You never, ever, ever want to run out of stock, because if you don't have it, you can't sell it. And that's something I learned working at Home Depot. I had a store manager that would get in my face, Hopper, if you don't have it, you can't sell it. They would this lady would scream in my face because I was responsible for ordering for a couple departments. And man, when I ran out of stock, they lit me up. So I got it burned into my soul. If you don't have it, you can't sell it. And if you run out of stock, and one thing I've learned on Amazon especially, if you have sales velocity and you have perpetual sales, and you spend ad dollars to get those customers, and then you wind up running out of stock, you don't know what those ad dollars would have done. How high do those sales have gone? Hey, honey. And because all of a sudden your sales go like this,
Yeah.
zero. So really the inventory management tools and, lead times are very important. We've had plug and plays for QuickBooks. We've created our own tools. But if you got a really good inventory management tool you want to share with me, we'll take a look at it.
All right. Fantastic. How about the future? What do you see coming? Because right now, we're about a $6 trillion marketplace, e-commerce, growing very quickly. So that means about one in every or 25% of all purchases are online. Which when people hear that, it actually sounds a little bit low. I think it may be a little bit higher than that, but that's going to 8 trillion, which is going to be, we're probably looking at 50% of everything purchased is going to be online, and that could be.
Did you say 6 trillion right now?
Yeah.
And they're saying about 25% is e-com?
No, that equates to 1 out of every 4 purchases is online. $6 trillion market.
Okay, online. So that tells me that there's a $24 trillion opportunity, and if 25% of it is already online purchases,
yeah,
you wonder how much of that is Walmart and how much of it's Target and where else you go buy stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's growing very quickly. It's not going away, obviously. It's getting more and more easy to purchase things like a car online that people thought, that would have been crazy 10 years ago.
Oh, crazy.
So I guess, where do you think we're going in the future of e-commerce? And maybe the second part of that is, what advice do you have for anyone looking to get into e-commerce in the future, business in general, but e-commerce specifically?
Well, everybody has their own stomach for growth and risk, their own tolerance levels for risk. And so there's something I'm going to just touch on AI a little bit. They got some incredible tools out there, but I think that people that rely too much on AI, they're going to become a synthetic figure. And I'm a firm believer in relationships. I want people that look at my brand or look at my face or my videos talking about my product to know that there's a guy that really cares and appreciates people taking a chance to buy my products, and I really appreciate them, and I'm here to serve them as an old school type of customer service type of thing. It's not just a thing you're buying at a place. It's a product you're buying from a guy who really appreciates the business. And I think if you can really build your customers slowly, there's 2 schools of thought. You build relationship by relationship. You go to a small marketplace, you make sure you can deliver on time, you can deliver a great product, preferably made in America whenever possible. And but the other school of thought is, you know what? I don't care about people. I only care about money. I'm going to get as much stuff sold as I possibly can. I'm going to hit as many people as I can. I'm going to use AI to do it. And I don't care about relationships. There's nothing wrong with that. That's business. But I think that the AI world could quite possibly create this white noise atmosphere of everybody saying the same thing about the same stuff because it moves so fast. And I want to move slow. I want to be the slow moving guy that comes through, and everything's flying around like crazy. And I want to be a very sturdy, stable business builder that goes through and creates relationships with people along the way for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the AI with the slight variation that I think there's also call it a product, but that's a combination of the two. So in other words, you can have a relationship-based company with AI, leveraging AI where it makes sense, especially in software, which is what we do.
Yeah.
So we'll be integrating a lot of AI tools into our
Absolutely.
software. Things like forecasting, that's going to be very, very critical for the future of software as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that gets us about everything we needed as far as questions for you. Why don't you tell listeners how they can find your products and even find you if they want to reach out and get some advice from you, Rick?
Okay. Yeah, somebody wants to contact me. I'm easy to find. Rick@rickhopper.com. Somebody has an idea or they're having a conflict, or if somebody's strung out on drugs and they're like, dude, how did you get off drugs? Email me. I'll shoot straight with you. As far as getting a product launched okay, first of all, here's how you find us. ReadeREST, ReaDEREST, one word, one R in the middle. Go to Amazon. If you wear reading glasses, I highly recommend you check out our reading glasses. The B frames are the best. You'll see them. It's a bold face, blue horizon. This is my favorite. I think it's called Ocean Eyes. But Amazon is right now is the only place you can really buy this product. So look up, make sure you put in ReadeREST reading glasses or ReadeREST magnetic eyeglass holders. We didn't cover counterfeits and Chinese knockoffs, but I'm a master of that. Maybe if we can have me on another time, we'll talk about some other stuff. But we just finally cleaned up. Once I bought my company back recently, the first thing we did is we knocked out all the counterfeiters. So if you're looking for any adhesives, double-sided tape, an alternative to duct tape, it's called Dutch tape. You find it on Amazon on Wicked Good double-sided tape or Wicked Good Dutch tape. And that's it. And don't forget, if you are an entrepreneur in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you want to come to our program next year, bizownersed.org, check it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for sharing all that. And I think at this point, we'll wrap up today's podcast. So Rick, thanks very much for sharing your experience with the listeners, and thanks to everyone listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Focal Insights Podcast. If you like this episode, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can be alerted of new episodes. See you next time.